Hello, and thanks for tuning in to the Women's Leadership Support Group podcast. I'm your host, Lieutenant Commander Jessica Krieger, and today we'll be speaking with Rear Admiral Pamela Schweitzer. Admiral Schweitzer is the first female Chief Professional Officer for the pharmacy category of the U.S. Public Health Service. Throughout her pharmacy career, Admiral Schweitzer has served in various assignments, progressing in leadership responsibilities in the Indian Health Service, Veterans Administration, and she's currently with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. She began her career in the Indian Health Service at Pine Ridge Indian Hospital in South Dakota, followed by several geographic and programmatic moves reflecting increasing responsibility in her leadership. Her VA service was with the VA Medical Center Hot Springs in South Dakota, and her current duty station is with Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services in Baltimore, Maryland. Welcome, Admiral Schweitzer.
Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm so excited to be part of a podcast. I know that when I go running, I put a podcast in, and so this is like, hopefully if people have time, they can go listen to it while they're doing their exercise.
All right, well, let's just dig in. So can you give us a brief overview of your career and let us know what initially led you to the Commission Corps?
So thank you for that question. I get the opportunity to answer this a lot, and I appreciate you giving it to me ahead of time so I could think about what I was going to say. So really what happened, I was in doing my pharmacy residency when I very first heard about the Commission Corps, but I'm going to go a little bit back before that because to tell you what even got me interested or piqued my interest when I first saw it. I was doing a lot of service work when I was working in Southern California, and I would work in free clinics. I was part of Flying Samaritans, where I'd go out and be helping and serving others, and I really enjoyed doing that, not only as a student but as a pharmacy resident. So I was sort of doing that type of work. I was very active in pharmacy associations already after graduation. I was just engaged in policy, and I loved pharmacy. And I just happened to go to a meeting, and I was married, and my husband and I loved to travel, and we loved adventure. And so when I went to this meeting and I saw the booth, it was about Indian Health Service, and I saw the pictures of Alaska, that piqued my interest, and I ended up talking to the gentleman there, and that happened to be Rear Admiral Dick Church, and he had just become CPO. Oh, wow. So we just hit it off right away. I found out later that I was the very first person he recruited since he became CPO. I didn't know it at the time. Well, anyway, we talked, and so the plan was I was going to come to do 2 years. I was a clinical pharmacist, 2 years in the Indian Health Service, and then I would come back. I was already very engaged in the pharmacy profession where I lived. So we went in, and it changed my life when I got there. When I went into the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, I ended up getting exposed to just a whole nother world in public health. I learned what public health was. I was a health promotion disease prevention coordinator. I learned working with the community, the health boards, the leadership of the hospital, the leadership throughout the state of South Dakota. Learned to work with throughout the whole reservation. I was working on strategies to improve health for that population. We had tuberculosis, hepatitis A. We had alcoholism. There was a car, even the children wearing car seats. So it opened my eyes to public health is what it did, and I became hooked. So after that, my career kind of moved along. I had some decisions in there, different made by family, and I guess I can talk about those in a little bit. But at some point, what ended up happening is, as I moved around, I wasn't really thinking of career or positions. I really wasn't thinking any of that. I was just more still adventure learning. I had so much to learn, getting my clinical skills down, learning how to work with different departments, learning how to work with different disciplines. So I was really involved in all of that. And I wasn't thinking leadership. I wasn't thinking any of the things that we talk about now in the Corps. But what ended up happening as time goes on, I would see a problem, or a problem would be identified for us, and I got involved to try to solve it. It was very mission oriented, and so that's my career really was continued down solving problems and trying to focused on the mission. We had to get something done, so I'd work on it. So examples, and you know me a little bit here, working on the pharmacy billing. That wasn't something I came up with, oh, let's start billing. They needed it because they needed to increase revenue. So I had to learn that, and we rolled it out, and then it rolled out nationally. The same thing with the residency program. We got funding for a year to get that off the ground, and so how are we going to expand it? So we got that, had to put that together, get that off the ground. The same thing with mailing pharmacy, same thing with electronic health record. Every project I got involved with was really solving a problem. It's not like, I think I want a project that can help me grow nationally. That actually was never even in the thought. It was just mainly solving a problem, and ended up I met a lot of people every time I did that. I learned to network. I met a lot of people in the both private sector and in the federal sector. So all of those every step that I went along that way, it just helped me grow as a person, and over time I developed all the leadership skills. So that's sort of my whole career. I just ended up solving problems the whole way. And a lot of times these problems I was solving is something that no one else wanted to do. Like, meaning, who wants to do that? Like, it's too much work. And I agree, it's too much work, but I'm very patient. And so it's like, okay, let's dive in. All right, let's figure this out. What do we need to do next? So almost every project that I work on now, I know that they're impossible. They seem impossible at the time, but I know they're not, because it's just a matter of chipping away at it. And if it's important enough, we'll get it done. So that's my career. I just followed that little path the whole way. I didn't have a master plan.
Do you think there are any of those problem-solving sets or public health initiatives, like looking back on your career, that any specific ones really set you up and moved you in a path or direction to where you are now, like retrospectively?
Yeah, actually, yes, it is. I'm at CMS because I got involved in the pharmacy billing. And while I was in pharmacy billing, I was at a national level, and I didn't even know anything about policy. And all of a sudden, what ended up happening, I got involved in Pharm.D, helping to roll that out in the Indian Health Service. I had to learn it cold. So I knew everything about Medicare Part D on the implementing side. So then once we start implementing it, it was brand new. I saw some problems where, wait a second, this policy is not impacting the beneficiaries the correct way. So then what I do is I get together and put the story together, and I'd go, let's write back and let's tell CMS they've got it wrong. So I was on the other side, but I learned how to do that, and you could make change. So that was like really impactful, that I was able to take that and make change a policy that would help all of the beneficiaries. And I can give you several examples, but that's okay. I don't need to get into the details of it. But so that was probably a big deal for me to learn. That's how I even got into that world. Then the IT world was another one where I wasn't IT. I'm a clinical pharmacist. I'm a total clinical pharmacist. I saw patients. That was my love. If you had asked me out of school, that's what I was going to do for the rest of my career. But what happened was, when I was working in the pharmacy, it's like, we spend so much time filling prescriptions. How do we get out of filling prescriptions? Because we want to be more time with the patient. So I got into the automation of the pharmacy automation so I could get it more clinical. And then I learned that I didn't learn it. Somebody else learned it. But I understood how to make it happen and get the funding for it to make it happen. And to like, all right, let's get more of this. Let's expand more. So that was the only reason why I even learned IT, was to do more clinical work. And so I just went down that path and I learned more. So you can see it just started solving problems. Yeah. And I always had something else that I was trying to get to. The electronic health record, I'll tell you this story. This is how I got involved in that. I knew that they were working on that project to do electronic health record. I knew that I wanted pharmacy to go first so that physicians could get the orders right away. And I knew how it worked. I had already seen how it worked when I was at the VA. So I volunteer. I want to be the transformation lead so I can help get from A to B, meaning going to the pharmacy. Mm-hmm. So the physicians would write an order and it would go to the pharmacist for them to approve and dispense, so we can get that electronic part, no more paper. I wanted to be part of that. What I didn't know is there's about 1 million steps in between, and so I had to learn all the other packages because they had to be done first before I could get to the pharmacist. And so you see, to solve the problem, I had to learn all that middle too. So I learned radiology, I learned lab, I learned all the registration. I had to learn all of that too, but I was on a hurt. We had to get to pharmacy. And what happened if we hadn't have done that? Who knows what would happen. So I would always make sure pharmacy was taken care of.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was good. It's fun, and I do the same thing where I'm right now. So wherever it is, it's the same idea.
Tackle problems and see where they take you.
Yes. So I don't have a master plan, and so when I listen to people that have a master plan, master plans are great, but you have to realize you don't know when you get you're going to get other opportunities, and the door may open right in front of you, and you don't even realize that's a door to go in.
Yeah.
So when you see those, sometimes you have to have people to help you. Should I do this or should I do this? I'll give you another example. I had an opportunity, so I was working there in the Phoenix area office, and they had a shortage of a liaison, a Commission Corps liaison there in the office. So there's maybe 350 officers at the time there, and they asked me, would you be willing to come help until we fill the position? So that's a door.
Yeah.
So you have to decide, should I do it or should I not do it? So everybody gets these doors all the time, and you have to make that decision of what you're going to do. So I thought about it. I have good mentors. I have people to talk. What do you think I should do? You have to make the decision quick usually, and I went for it. But then I learned all the HR. I learned personnel. I learned Commission Corps personnel. I learned that whole system. That was a great year for me to spend learning how that all works, the application process, just every single piece of the Corps, and then they had me do all the training. So when you see one, do one, teach one, I had to do that too.
That's just a really good takeaway. I feel like, at least personally, I sometimes get so caught up in where I'm going, I don't necessarily see and realize where I am right now. That's good to focus on the present. All right. Speaking of the present, I have heard that you are a new grandma.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is I can't wait for everybody to experience this. It's really very special. She is the cutest little granddaughter ever could be. So she's just darling, absolutely darling. It's really wonderful, and I'm so proud of our daughter and our son-in-law. They are just the best parents ever. So it's really wonderful, and I'm glad they live nearby so I can see them quite often. I'll probably go see them a little bit later today. They don't know I'll stop by.
Surprise. So generally we try to ask people what their home life looks like and how it affects their job and their core. And so some of the folks we've spoken to are parents of younger kids, but your kids are grown. And so do you want to talk a little bit about, through your career, how your family evolving affected how your career was evolving?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I'll be honest with you, this is one of the reasons why with the group, I sort of was very interested in kind of getting people together, because I know what we went through. So I was working in Pine Ridge Indian Reservation when I had our son. It was an hour and 20-minute commute to work and back. I was working 10-hour days. So those of you that have young children, you knew what was going on in my mind is I'm not doing this anymore. This is really unbearable. So I had him in July. By January, I was gone. But what I did is I knew right away, this isn't sustainable. There's no way I can keep doing this because I missed him so much. I was nursing him, breastfeeding. Work was not really conducive to all of that, and I was nursing him the whole way. But I'd have to pump, and I had to go through all of that. So what ended up happening is I started right away, and we had a VA in town, and I went over and visited with them, and they saw my skill set, and they created a position for me. It's a clinical pharmacy position. So as soon as they created that for me, I applied, got the position, then I quit. And so my family came first. So I loved my work. I loved working public health at the Pine Ridge, but my family came first. That commute was just really, really hard for me, and for our family and my husband. So what we ended up doing is I started working at the VA, and it was great. Couldn't have been better. I was a staff pharmacist, and all I did was fill prescriptions. I could go to work. I came home at lunch. I was able to nurse. I go home on time. It was a perfect time for me to be there, but that didn't last long. I was there for a short time, and they had some turnover, and they asked me to be the chief pharmacist, acting. And so I was only now 2 years out of school, and so I'm pretty young being the acting chief pharmacist. And so I said, okay, I'll be acting, only I don't want to do the chief job. So while I was in that position, and part of it was in my residency, I had administrative background or whatever. I was able to, and this is how naive I was. I was not an administrator. Remember, I'm a clinical pharmacist. I remember I went first meeting with the staff, and they're all older than me. All right, so everything was chaotic. So what do I need to ask for first, you guys? They said, we need more staff. Okay, I'll go ask for more staff. I'm not shy. So I went to the administration. I said, we need more staff. And they asked me, how many FTE do you have? What's an FTE? So, I mean, I knew very little. And so I had to go back to the drawing board. And so they all felt sorry for me. This is administrators. And they took me under their wing and they tried to explain it to me. And I didn't understand why they weren't giving us what we wanted. So they'd put me on the committee so I'd see the bigger picture. So this is all early on. They'd put me on the and then I realized, ooh, yeah, they need it more than we do. You know, they helped me see the big picture. So then I learned how to be more strategic at that point so we can get what we need. And that's when I said, how about automation? And that's when they said, sure, you can have all the money you want for automation. So do you see how I got involved in all this? And they said, yeah, no, you can't have staff, but automation. All right, we're in. Count us in. We'll get it. What do I need to do? Well, what do you need? Here's what I need. I asked for the moon, and they gave me the moon. So that was all early on in the early days of all that when they were trying to get that going when all the Pyxis machines and everything like that. So anyway, that's one of the other areas how I got involved in all that automation. So I was one of the first ones, and I could unlimited. So anyway, isn't that great? So anyway, what ended up happening? So that's early on in my career. It was really nice. Then I ended up getting pregnant with our daughter. Had her when I was in there working at the VA, but they wanted me then to stay in be the chief. And looking back, looking back, I probably shouldn't have said yes, but I did say yes at that time. And that was hard when you have an infant. I was chief pharmacist. It was very, very, it's like a blur in my life during that time period. And for my husband too, he had his job. I had my job. What do you do when the kids are sick? All those challenges. We ended up having to try different things. What we ended up working for us during those early years was we had somebody come to our house and be with our kids, and then I took a day off a week. My husband took a day off a week, and then we took them in to daycare a half a day a week. We did something like that. So for the kids, it was lower stress on them. They didn't have, we weren't hustling them somewhere. Didn't have to worry about the sick child. So that's what we ended up doing. But we had to like evolve to get there. It didn't happen overnight. And then when the kids got older, we moved, they were older, they're walking, they're talking, they're funny when that really cute age. We were living in Tuba City. We moved there, and they were at a great age there. And so there, for them, it's like life is fun, potlucks, camping trips, adventures. So it was just really, really fun during that age. My husband was not working then, but I also had, I stepped down. I went from a chief pharmacist back down to a staff, which was really good. I was able to come home at lunch, be off on time, get a lot of leave, spending time with the family. We do a lot of adventures. We were friends with a lot of the people because we lived on the compound there. So it was a really fun time during our life, and our kids loved it. But for my husband, it was frustrating for him because he wasn't working, and he had gone back and got his teaching license or teaching certificate, and he wanted to be teaching elementary school. So we didn't stay long there because we moved because we wanted to get somewhere where he could teach. So then we moved there, and then the kids went to school where my husband was, so that was easy with the kids. He was a teacher up through elementary school, and then they started getting involved in all their activities, and that's when we started thinking. I was traveling a lot during that time. I was doing a lot of national work, traveling all around everywhere. And so I said, this isn't going to last. So that's why we pushed getting all the webinars, doing webinars instead of traveling. I would travel somewhere and do an hour presentation and travel back. It was ridiculous. Like, you'd waste all day traveling. Wow. So we pushed national to let us get webinars. And then the other thing we did is I started getting permission to work from home. And so, because I was traveling so much, I travel somewhere if I need to, but I could just manage, and I had an office all set up. So by the time the kids got to junior high school, I was able to work from home. I could go to all their activities. What I didn't tell you is my husband and I have always been very involved in our communities. So everywhere we've ever lived, we've been engaged, totally engaged. So here at this, when the kids were junior high school, My husband was in charge of he was the chairman of the planning commission in the town. So we were involved in all the town activities. I was a 4-H leader at the time with our kids. Our kids were in sports. We were running them here. Every Sunday night, you're like, okay, what's the schedule this week? And kind of getting it figured out. What do I need to buy? What do you need to get? What do you need to take to school? But it helped a lot me working from home. I'd get a call every day. My daughter, Mom, can you bring me lunch? Mom, I forgot this. Mom, I forgot that. So I'd be on a call, delivering it to her. So it made it easy to be able to do it. I made all their events and all their activities. And then, of course, then they went to college. And when I started the CPO job, the kids were in college. Everybody was nice and nice. It was a good, nice place. Halfway through me being CPO, about a year and a half ago, my mom we found out she had Alzheimer's. So I've been dealing with a parent now with dementia, and it's a whole nother level that none of us are prepared for. I can go on that for a while, what the challenges are there, but I'm learning a lot about the medical system now, and it's very, very challenging. So we can talk more about this later as people know, somewhere along the line, it'll be a good topic to bring up because there's not a lot of support out there.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Well, and I'll tell you, during my career, like if people ask me what's the most stressful time in my career that I've ever had, I'll tell you when it is. It was when my dad was dying, and I had a project that I had volunteered for. It wasn't even my boss giving it to me. I had the skill set, so hey, can you help with this other project? Sure, I'll help you. But what ended up being is then they had these deadlines that had to be met, and my dad is dying. And the thing is that you have a choice. I have to be with my family and with my dad and take care of him. And it's not that I was caring for him, but at least be there while he had over a 2-week period, or this project that had this critical deadline. And I'll be honest with you, the supervisor was so stressful, or so tough, like, when are you going to get it done? Da 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 da. Like that, it upset me a lot, and it was that but I had my supervisor. I just said, I can't handle this, and so because there's too much going on in the project. It needed me still. I couldn't break away and be on its own. So I go, you just got to help buy some time for me. Like, buy some time. I need 3 weeks. So that was like a really stressful 3 weeks, but he did. He bought time for me. So I was able to just tune that all out, spend it with my family, my dad he passed, and then come back and then get the project done.
What was your relationship like with that supervisor? Like, were you guys on a friendly, like,
my supervisor that had my back was awesome. Yeah. He was great, but the one that was above, I didn't work for them. They weren't my supervisor. Yeah. I was just doing this project for the agency. Okay. And so they didn't quite understand it. They probably had never had a parent go through this with a parent. Yeah. And so I wasn't connecting with them. I wasn't on the same page connecting. And they just, well, when are you going to get it done? When are you going to get it done? I should have learned how to handle that kind of thing a little bit better, but I didn't know how to do that then. I was too early in my career. Now I know how to handle it. I would tell them, well, I'll have it done on this day. I'll have it done by the end of the week. You just say that so they leave you alone.
So suggestion-wise, if like people are having to make a decision between career and family, whether it's with young children or an aging parent, like what words of wisdom do you have?
Oh, family first. It always needs to be family. You need to figure that, and also you need to have good supervisors and inform their supervisors, depending on where you are in your career. Most supervisors are pretty understanding, and maybe you have to make a decision if it comes down to it. You can't, some of these projects, you like, oh, I want to be part of it. I love this project, and maybe you have to make that choice of not doing the project then and spending time with the family because you only have that time once. Only have that once. And I have no regrets for anything I've ever done because I've always been able to kind of figure that part out at some point, the family part.
Because I wanted to ask you a similar question. You said you had stepped down from chief pharmacist to staff pharmacist, and for as focused on career progression as we tend to be, like I feel like a lot of people would be nervous to make that change, like going from like an 05 to an 04 billet or something like that mid-career. Do you feel that negatively impacted your career at all? Do you think it negatively or positively impacted your family? Like, what would you say to somebody who has that decision to make of, should I go from something like a higher position to a lower position at a certain time in their career, and they're nervous of doing it? for the potential consequences to their career?
Well, I have a really interesting story to tell you. When I finished my residency, I got hired on as supervisor right off the bat. Where I was, the medical center where I was located before I joined Commissioned Corps. Then I went in, I took a staff position in Indian Health Service. So I went from a supervisor to a staff position with about a 50% pay cut because the pay was a lot different back then.
Yeah.
And so the associate director of the facility said, "You are making the worst decision of your life by doing that. Why would you want to do that?" And so what ended up happening is every time if you're learning a new skill, you're learning something new, you're meeting new people, I think that the value you get from those experiences is really what is helping to make you whole or adding to your value. So I think that's something always to take into consideration versus the position. Versus the actual position. So I learned about public health in there, but I took a staff position to learn about public health. Later on, I was a chief. I understood how to learn that. I got exposed to all the strategic planning. I got a ton of training. I learned all the IT, the information technology world. So then when I went to the next job, I went back down to staff. Do you think I could contribute to that facility, to all of that? I was able to really help them at their facility because I had all these other skills. And then I observe a lot. Here I go from a chief, and this is what I learned from doing that. When the chief, if you go talk to everybody always answers what you think that they want to hear. Could you get this done? Sure, I'll get that done. Can you get that? Sure, I'll get that done. What you don't know is when you leave the room what they're saying. So what happened is I learned that. I was a chief. Then I went to I was a staff, and I watched the same thing happen. I'm going, so that's what they're doing. So there was a lot I learned about from being a chief to then not being a chief. And then I just watched the staff, and I started focusing more on those soft skills and paying attention to them more. So I'm learning all of that while that's going on. I'm learning new skills. It's not like I was doing the same job. And I was spending time with my family. And then, again, the next job I went was this chief job there too. So I'm not ever saying that you always have to be working and trying to improve yourself always. And you learn just how people react, and you meet people along the way. And even when I went to CMS, I took a step down to go to CMS because I wanted to help with the Affordable Care Act. Do you think that's a great skill set to be part of helping to roll that out, implement all of that? So every time it just helps you grow and grow and grow. I don't think the position means so much as more as the experience and what you get exposed to is really what's important, because it helps you grow. There's a lot of great opportunities out there if people just go, God, that would be interesting. I'd love to be part of that. So that's what pushed me mainly. I'd want to be part of that.
Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah.
All right. So your position as CPO is obviously very demanding and very high profile. So how has having that position impacted your relationship with your husband, and how do you two stay connected while having so many professional responsibilities?
So I have the best husband in the world. We've been married 30 years. We just had our 30th anniversary, and he's my best friend. We travel well together. We talk every day. We're communicating every day. There is no way that I could be a CPO. There's no way I could have done any of my career without him. He's the adventure one. He's the one that said, let's go to Pine Ridge sight unseen. Let's go do this sight unseen. So he's there the whole time. Our relationship is even better now, actually, because we have to solve the problem with my mom now. So he's the one that's taking care of my mom for me right now. He's the boots on the ground person. He's not taking care of her. We have her in a home, but he's the one that's doing the day-to-day, making sure everything's okay with her. So anyway, over the years, we had to figure this out early on. I was talking about early on with the kids. That was probably our time that we had to struggle the most when we first had kids, because we were used to traveling and doing everything we want, and all of a sudden we're kind of homebound. And we couldn't do the same things that we could do before. But we figured it out. It took a few years, and we figured it out. So my kids are the same way too. We talk about everything before I move, before I decide a position, before we decide to move. It's a family decision. And for the kids, they're like fun, new. So they're easy. The kids tend to be pretty easy.
Okay.
So my husband and I, we see each other about once a month. You should probably hear all this. We see each other about once a month, and we have trips planned, like fun things that we look forward to that are coming up, that we like look forward to, that we bring the family together, and that keeps us going. We have like every month something coming up.
Oh, wow.
So that's what keeps us going. So you see me unplug. If you can't find me, I'm usually with him. I just totally unplug and just let everything go, spend time, and then I pop back in. And if he was here, I wouldn't be able to work as long hours as I could.
Yeah.
So it actually works out really well for both of us. He's in Arizona. He's going to spend the last half of my CPO out here, though.
Oh, good.
So everybody's going to get a chance to meet him. And he's very outgoing, very talkative, very energetic, and you'll love him. Everybody will fall in love with him.
He sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
So have you always been able to unplug like that, or is that just something that you've done as you've gotten a little further in your career that you've realized you needed to do that?
I did it about midway through my career. I learned to do it. The most stressful part of my career was actually more in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
It was more in the middle, and it prepared me for this. So I had already figured that out by here,
All right.
by the time I got here. So early on, because you have to. That's
Yeah.
what keeps you sane. And I can actually turn work off completely and then turn it back on again.
Like mentally?
Yeah, mentally. I've learned how to do that.
So are those like your coping mechanisms for maintaining a work-life balance?
Yes, that's a coping mechanism for me.
Do you care to share any of those tricks? Like how? Like I know so many people that can't turn their brain off from work. Like you get home and you're like, oh, I had this report due and I have to do this next week and this coming up. Do you have any ways that personally work well for you to just turn that off?
Well, I'll tell you what teaches you really quick when you have a child and they're talking to you and your mind is somewhere else. And you'll say, what did you say again? Right? What did you say again? And then, Mom, you weren't listening to me. You're right, I wasn't listening to you. So that's where I learned it. I said, all right, I got to give full attention. So I just learned, you know what? The world doesn't end. And this is other people taught me too. The world doesn't end if this doesn't get done on time. I need to just give realistic expectations. I'll have it done by this time. And then so I can turn off, be that. And then I learned it in pharmacy school too. Because what happened was I used to have exams, and Paul, that's my husband, we would take these trips right before a big exam, but we would do it and I'd be totally into wherever we were. We went to Yellowstone in the winter. I'd come back and then it would force me to like concentrate really super hard on that to get it done because I had an exam coming up and I couldn't waste any time. So I would just be super focused and then I'd take the exam and be okay. And like, holy cow, otherwise I'd waste time, over the weekend and dicking around doing this and doing that. So what ends up happening is my time is more focused too. So in other words, I'll give time here and then I just switch gears, go over here, but I'm 100% tune everything out. I don't hear anything else. I just get it done if I have a deadline. So you learn it a little bit in school too. You just don't realize it. Okay. And then the other thing I do, like think smart, be smarter about it.
Okay. Yeah.
So in other words, I don't reinvent the wheel. I'll remember back, I know this is somewhere else. I don't reinvent the wheel. Like I'll know where to get information to be able to get something done quicker.
Okay. So I feel like you have one of the best work-life balances, or what appears to be one of the best work-life balances that I've seen. Do you have any really large obstacles in maintaining that, or since you've kind of switched midway through your career and unplugging, has it been easy for you to maintain?
I actually don't think I do a very good job at work-life balance.
It looks like you're always doing something fun or going somewhere.
Yeah.
You seem relaxed and happy.
Yeah. I am. I am. I guess I am. Well, part of it is like you can't make all the deadlines. The other thing is, you know what? This is probably something, and I'm going to say this because I see what ends up happening is I trust, delegating. I work on a team, like I take a class, and you can have one person on the team, and it's like I feel compelled to like do all of it and have it exactly right. You know what? Everybody's going to chip in. I'll do my part, but I don't need to be dominating, taking over the whole project. So part of it is learning how to work as a team member, and then you don't feel so overwhelmed because you're just doing your part. And if everybody does their part, you're okay. So I don't feel like I have to be in charge of everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can be a follower. We just had the meeting we had today right now. We just got off a meeting, and everybody's chipping in, and it just makes it so much easier. So learning to work better as a team, I think. Before it used to be stressful when it was all on me and I had to get the whole thing done. And if I didn't get it done, it wasn't going to move. So those are really challenging for me. if I have a deadline and I know I can't make it.
Yeah. So if you could go back 10 or 15 years and give advice to yourself, what would you tell yourself?
What I would tell myself is here's what I thought. In the beginning, I thought, oh, what an honor I'm being asked to be the pharmacy director right out of school. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was, wow, they asked me, they must believe in me. So that's what I thought as a female.
Okay.
I think now looking back, it's like we need a sucker. And I'm saying this, we need somebody to do it, and you're willing to take it because there's a lot of headaches that go with this. Mm-hmm. So I think early in the career, I think it's really dangerous for any of us when you have young kids to take those leadership positions where you're expected to work in the evenings and take time away from your family. I think when you have a young family, I feel like it's really important you spend time to get that. The kids are the way they are. They learn all their values, and you teach them all these things that you teach them in those early years, even by the time they're in elementary school, middle of like second, third grade, they've already learned a lot. Mm-hmm. You've taught them so much. And I think those time that you be with them is really important, the time that we be with them. So I think I wouldn't have done that job. That was probably, but I learned from it. It's past, I already did it, but I probably would have said no. Okay. If I were to go back now, I would tell myself not to do it. But I did it already.
Well, maybe somebody else will learn from your
right. I wouldn't have done
advice.
That one.
So what has been your most rewarding accomplishment professionally and personally?
I'm going to say personally first. I love my kids. The kids, our son and our daughter and their significant others or husband they're just really, really genuinely good people. I love hanging out with them, and they are very interesting, intelligent, fun to be around, interested in a lot of things. So the part that I'm excited about is that they turned out to be good kids, and they have good values. We can talk about anything. So that part there for me is really great. And I think a really nice compliment, I know that our daughter is and son-in-law, they're real excited for us to be part of their life forever, with the kids and help with their kids. And I know our son's the same way. So I look forward to those times that we get together. And, we're all, every day, my husband's kind of like the main coordinator, but we're all chit-chatting every day, keeping up with who's doing what, even though we're scattered. Our son's in Minnesota, and then our daughter's here in D.C. So that's personally. And then professionally, I didn't realize when I was going to become CPO what it really meant before I became CPO. And I think what I ended up doing, I think when I look back on time, I'm going to probably say during this time period, just to be able to just have a really appreciation for our officers in the pharmacy category and actually throughout the whole Corps, and what they do and what the value that they're adding to our whole country, and just have a really true appreciation. My world was really just mainly in Indian Health Service, and then I've been exposed to so many other just skill sets and intelligent, smart, great people. And as far as like the project, what I've been able to do with that, I think being able to help influence the profession a little bit. I've been part of being able to do a little bit of that, influence the profession. And I think over the years, just some of the projects that I've been working on, that ones that are living, things like the residency program and the pharmacy billing and even the electronic health record, all those things, e-prescribing, all these projects that I was part of early on, to see them live and take off and do so well. And even the Women's Leadership Support Group, we sort of got that started, and look, it's taking off and doing that. So I think that for me, it makes me just happy. I didn't do it. It was just pulling all the people together, and the people sort of, it was the right time, and it took off. And for me, that's just really great. And I happen to be in the pharmacy profession at a really important time, like, for provider status and just getting recognized. And I just am in the right place at the right time. Yeah. And I think I'm really lucky, and I've been able to leverage my position to help move it along a little bit. So it'll be good looking back afterwards. We'll see what these years did, but I know the earlier years it made a difference. And even hiring the people that I hired, even in the early job, when they're early positions, I'd hire people and seeing them be chief and seeing them grow. that is like, or just all the residents that I hired over the years, and watching them and see the positions that they're in and see them grow and become who they are, and mentoring people and see them grow and just blossom and become these great people. A lot of the really great leaders that we have, somewhere along the line, I had a chance to visit with them, and I hope it influenced them in a positive way because, anyway, it's been really great. I love going out in the field too and seeing everybody. That's for me a highlight always, going out into the field and visiting where I used to visit.
So speaking of mentors and people who have been influential in your career, informally via video met some of your mentors on the video project at COF this past year. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of your mentors, how they've helped you, and what you've learned from them that you enjoy now helping you to mentor others?
Yeah, I like because they're honest with me. They know me so well, and they'll keep me in line. Admiral Church was a big mentor of me, mainly because, and I didn't know this, mainly because I was his very first person that he brought on board, and he kind of kept tabs with me. And I remember specifically he called me when I left to the VA, when I went to the VA, and he tried to get me not to go to the VA. And I said, yeah, but they want me here too. And don't worry, maybe I'll come back. You say that, but you never know if you're going to or not. But he still kept in touch with me. Even he didn't need to, but he still kept in touch with me, even though I had left. And he spent a lot of time telling me history, telling me strategy. I have people, work-life balance, mentors that keep me work-life balance. Pam, I can tell by your voice that you're not doing well. Let's talk about it. When I used to early on get really frustrated with certain personalities, that I needed mentors for that. I needed people to bounce stuff off. Did I do something wrong? Should I do something different? Should I have done it different? Should I have said something different? This is how I feel, but I can't react that way. So I need someone to bounce how I'm going to approach a problem. I needed people that would be honest with me and not just say yes. And and it hurt. Sometimes they said, you're doing something wrong. Well, I don't want to do it that way. I know that's right now. I don't want to do it that way. But I'd think about it for a day or two, and then I would do it. That's where I learned not to react fast too. I learned, okay, I got to think this through before I react when I wanted to react. I had to learn all that. That was all learned. Because we have a natural reaction of how we want to be, and I had to learn it and have people I could trust. And these are people that I've known for a long time. And I think you met Diane on that. Diane, she was my residency coordinator, and I know her. She's on the private sector side, but she's like one of the best. She's my rah, you can do it, Pam. Should I do this or not? Do it. My husband's the same way. Do it. You go for it. Oh, I don't think I can do it. Yes, you can. You need someone like that too, that believes in you always. And she always does, always. So anyway, I have different types of mentors. I have ones that keep me in line, people to bounce things by, that I especially, and they can hear it in my voice. They can hear something's going on in my voice. So over time, there were personalities. I had challenges with it, and a lot of it, you expect it. When you get into the C-suite level positions, you're going to have these challenging conversations. It's not meant to be, you have to speak up, you have to say something. In fact, that's advice that I'm probably going to share with all the women. That's one of the things, is speak up, say what you say. You have to stand for something and say it. It's okay to say it. And you want to stand for it. You're going to feel better about yourself if you do versus if you don't. So, but sometimes it hurts when you do that. And, I had to talk to somebody about that early on. Should I have not said that? Those are the people that I needed them, and they're available all the time. I could call them anytime. Yeah. So that's a great group of friends, huh? Anytime, 9 o'clock at night, 10 at night, anytime I could call them.
Rare.
I have about 4 or 5 of them, huh?
I said that's rare, but also a blessing.
It's a blessing. It is a blessing. And then my husband, even if I'm wrong, is always on my side. And I like that because I know I'm wrong sometimes. But he goes, well, in the moment that was the right way to do it. He'll never tell me you should do something different, ever. Isn't that great?
That's sweet.
I know. So and I'm wrong. I realize I'm wrong. But he never says it.
Smart guy. So speaking about, you said one of your mentors, you talked to him when you were going to go work at the VA. So at that point in your career, you took a step back, am I correct, from PHS and went to work for the VA as a civilian.
Correct.
So if a junior officer came up to you today and they were facing something similar, what would you recommend to them? Would you recommend them leaving the Corps to try to come back later, staying in the Corps? What are your thoughts?
That's a really good question. And I think it would depend how far along they are in their career. Because if they're towards the end of the career, you know, senior, then I'd say go. You know, they may not be able to get back. That's the problem.
Yeah.
If they may not be able to get, and that's the challenge now. It was a lot easier to come back than it was when I left and came back. It was pretty easy to come back. It's a little bit more challenging now, and there's change going on. One of the things that I say a lot is I tell them it's your decision that you have to make, but you really have to talk with your family and bounce it back and forth, and see what do you see, why do you want to even stay in? Is that going to help you achieve whatever you're going to be achieving? So I never thought that far in advance. You're listening now and you realize I never actually had a 10-year plan, not even a 5-year plan. I had more of a solving a problem. This project's going to take me 5 years. I want to finish it. I was very project oriented. I want to work on this. I want this area. I'm really interested in this, and this is about a 5-year project. I was kind of more of a project oriented person. So, but every person's going to be a little bit different. But I think it's a little bit challenging now if you wanted to leave. If it was for family and your spouse was moving somewhere and you had young children and there's not a PHS job, you already know what my answer is going to be. Family. Yeah. So, and then you just have to take your chance about coming back in. You know, if it's meant to be, it'll work out. And then also, if you're really good, the chances are you keep fighting to get back in. Because I think if you're early enough in your career, you'll be okay. So here's what I want to just add, though.
Yeah.
What I've noticed, and I had in this position, I go around and I get a visit. You know, you visit a lot of people. I go to a lot of schools. You see all the leaders in the profession. And what I've noticed is that you run into him. I ran into, he's a physician. He was a senator in California. He goes, I was in the PHS. You were. Yeah, I did. He worked in the Navajo. And so I run into these people all over, and he's like doing immunizations for the state of California. So like you run into these people, it changes their life. So even if people come in for a little bit, even if they can't stay in, they leave for family reasons, their public health, they're making a difference in this world. Yeah. They're making a difference in the United States. They're in health policy. So it's really, we have a really bigger family than we realize because we've touched people, or people have been touched and learned about public health, and they've gone on for whatever reason. They couldn't do career. They weren't able to stay for a career for whatever reason. And I get emails from people there. They came in and they were gone, and they'll email and I'll see where they are, and they're just doing great work wherever they are, and I'm so proud of them just to know that we had them for a little while. So every person's got to make their own decision. It's really, really tough. For those people that are in 10 years now already, you know, so you're crazy not to stay, but, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So it's just those early years. You have to make that tough decision.
All right. So I know recently you went to Alaska, and you did you hiked the Chilkoot Trail, correct?
Yes.
So it seems like you do a big multi-day hike with your friends and your family about once a year.
Yes.
What's your favorite hike or the most notable hike that you've been on, and what made it so noteworthy?
I actually like all these most recent hikes that we've been doing because we've been doing them with friends. Some of the folks are public health service, and the camaraderie we have. You know, they're all really great. Every time I've gone on them, I say, this is the best ever. And we said that at the Alaska hike, the Chilkoot Trail, this is the best ever. It was such a great experience. And it's like a high, you know, it's a high because, you know, you have no cell phones, you're totally unplugged, and you get a chance to meet and visit and talk with people. You're out in nature. We just love all that. The Rim to Rim to Rim hike was really good. This recent one, Kilimanjaro, we have a Machu Picchu one coming up. So anyway, when I do retire, I'm gonna spend more time organizing more of them.
Yeah.
So they're going to be great no matter what. There's a whole bunch to do. I'm just trying to think back what the best one is. They're all of them. When you have a lot of people together and it's all positive, can-do attitude, that's what makes them all good. So it's hard to pick one. My husband loves to travel, and our kids, we do a lot of traveling with our kids. And so some of the adventures are with some of those, outside too, before I got into doing public health. I don't know, it's a tough one. The Rim to Rim to Rim was a pretty good one.
Okay.
I love the Grand Canyon. We had about 20 people on that one. We'll do another one.
Sign me up.
I know, sign you up.
I'm available. I have hiking boots. Let's go.
All right, good. Yeah, the Rim to Rim to Rim is a good one.
Ma'am, do you have a favorite quote? Maybe?
I actually have several favorite quotes. Can I give you a few quick favorite quotes?
Please do. And if you don't mind, also let us know why.
Okay, so one of them, and this probably is a quote that keeps me going, like when I'm working on projects. And the quote is, "Just because you aren't making progress as fast as you think you should does not mean you aren't making progress. Keep going." So I think about that because I realize that's why we're in this for the long haul, and you keep moving forward. Just think about all the projects that you have accomplished, and you look back when you first started, and you go, "Holy cow, I've been working on this for a year."
Yeah.
So it's just you keep moving forward and you don't forget. So that's one that I like. Another one is, when God sees you doing your part, developing what He has given you, then He will do His part and open doors that no man can shut. I love that quote. And it's because we all have talents. And if we're using our talents to the best of our ability, doors open.
Yeah.
And we just have to recognize when they're open. I like that quote. And then another quote that I like is, "Great leaders don't set out to be a leader. They set out to make a difference. It's never about the role. It's always about the goal." So anyway, these are all my favorite quotes.
That last one just fits so well with the story that you've just been telling us of yourself this whole way.
Yep, that's it.
All right, and then our standard closing question is, what's the best piece of advice that you can offer to other female officers or other women in general?
Well, I guess throughout the whole pod, I guess we've been talking a lot about family first. So that's something that kind of keep in the forefront of the mind. And then I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit just about being leaders and about being, kind of like the strategy for being successful. You want to get promoted, and for being recognized as a leader and being able to get things accomplished is, don't be shy about speaking up. And I'll say this over and over, and I know it doesn't seem proper to it's not like you're bragging or saying, "Hey, I've accomplished this," but when you're in the right setting, you need to speak up. Especially when you're around C-suite folks, C-suite meaning like the administration, go ahead and offer opinions, provide comments, make yourself visible, make sure you're visible and that they know that you're there. So that I encourage women to do that. And you have to practice at it. It's not natural because you're not really sure, should I say this or not? Because, God, what that other person said was so much better than what I'm going to say. And that's what you think, but you need to say it. So that takes practice to do that. And you just keep doing that and keep doing that. So I encourage women to do that. And just, don't realize how awesome and the major contributions that you have, and that how talented. If people don't realize how talented that they are, I see it all the time. So anyway, I just want to encourage you and help let you recognize that you are really, really good. And I'm very, very proud to be able to work alongside all of you.
Well, ma'am, it has been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you very much for inviting me. This has been great.
Hey listeners, one more thing before we go. If you have any ideas or suggestions for interview questions, topic of discussions, or folks you'd like to hear interviewed, please send us your suggestions at forumforfemaleofficers@gmail.com. That's FORUM, the number 4, FEMALEOFFICERS@gmail.com. Thanks so much.